Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How's everyone doing? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala Rasulil Kareem, amma ba'd. So I was told that Edmonton is the home of the first masjid, right? Masjid Rashid is the home of the first masjid. And I was reading out more, and apparently Masjid Rashid, it opened when there were only 700 Muslims in the entirety of Canada. In the entirety of Canada, there were only 700 Muslims. Only 700 Muslims. So this shows that, mashallah, from beginning, the Muslims of Edmonton value understanding the Islamic knowledge, and they value staying firm on their Islamic values, and they understand that if they do not value their Islamic heritage, then they will be stormed by the outside heritage or the outside values and the outside understanding. So one of the main components of this presentation will be that if we do not fill a cup, if we are not filling that cup, someone else will fill that cup. And those people who fill the cup are not going to be certainly something that we like. It's not going to be a fun juice or a delicious juice. It's going to be something else, right? So we need to make sure that we are filling up the cup, and we fill up the cup with proper Islamic understanding, with proper Islamic value. So this is why it is so important to understand Islamic's perspective on gender. Because if we are not filling the cup of our children, if we are not filling the cup of our spouse, of people around us, of our siblings, of our younger siblings, and if we leave them to the school, if we leave them to school, and if we leave them that okay, the school will take care of it, then it is very dangerous. Then that cup will be filled by something else and by someone else, by other ideologies. So this is why it is very important to ground ourselves in the Islamic paradigm. So the main question that we're talking about here right now, main question is number one, why homosexual behavior is prohibited in Islam? Why is it prohibited? What is the reason why it is prohibited? Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited the homosexual behavior? Right? This is the main question. Previously, it seemed intuitive. Many times, the way it's presented by media, school, is that every sane person accepts these rights, accepts and promotes them. Every sane person, anyone who has some type of intellect, they will support them. But then when we look at 50 years ago, if that was the case, then 50 years ago were people supporting of these things? Only 2015 were gay rights or gay marriage in US was mandated. Only in 2015. Not even less than a decade ago. Before that, even gay marriage was something out of the blue, something abnormal. Right? That's we're only speaking a decade ago. So now it's a means of shubha. Now young children, young kids, they go to university and they're taught that oh, it's all normal. It is a very normal thing. It is moral. But then when they come to understand the Quran, then they see that it's prohibited. So now they have this clash. If it is normal and if it's moral, then why did Allah prohibit it? Right? So this is one question. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why is this behavior prohibited in Islam? Number two, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy a nation? Right? A nation was destroyed. The claim they make is, what's the harm? Yeah, what's the harm? There's only two people, consenting adults, was they're loving each other behind closed doors. They're not harming anyone. They're not harming society. What is the wrong thing? What's the harm? Right? So why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be bothered by it? This is the question. Then there's a whole segment to this. It's only talking about the harms. And we don't only talk about the harms, we go in detail in individual harm, how it destroys a person, how it destroys the family unit, how it destroys society, how it destroys the entire civilization. The moment sexual promiscuity, we open the doors to that freedom, then entire civilization can be destroyed. This is the harms. So this is one of the things that there was no harm. So these are the main things we're tackling. But before going into much detail, we need to first understand what our children are being taught in school and how the media are portraying these things. So this is the main thing, one of the main things that we're focusing right now. Where are we today? Where are we today? So when it comes to literature, there is a literature, a very famous novel, comic book series, Lumberjanes, and they're big. They're popular comic book series, and the main in 75 issues, the main character is it is advertised for teenager. This book, this comic book series, it is for teenagers, and the protagonist is a trans woman. The protagonist is a trans woman with two gay fathers. So they're literally now I'm just showing you a glimpse of how this is normal, right? Many times you will see that this for us, like we might be even laughing at this, right? We might be laughing at this, but we are laughing at this because we grew up in a different society. But our children are literally growing up in this society, in this time. In 20 years from now, 15 years from now, this might not be a laughing issue. This might be, oh, this is normal. This is the way we're brought up. And this is something which is very scary, if anything. And then every year there's annual rainbow list with LGBT books ranging from infants to 18 years old. Those small story books that you read to kids to go to bed. So they have these LGBT characters. Before there used to be prince and princess, princess trying to win over the princess and goes through all this trouble to get to the princess and all that. There used to be prince and princess, but now you have two prince, right? You have two princesses, you have two prince. It's with LGBT characters. And now one of the saddest thing, or scariest thing I should say, drag queen story hours. Anyone know drag queen? Drag queen story hours? So drag queen, it is something that it's not. I'm not making this up. In my school, in my place where I'm coming from in Montreal, the library that we have around us, it's a nice library that they've built. It's very a couple 2 kilometers from my place, and they invite these drag queens. So there are these drag queens. They are men, but they will wear clothing of female. They'll wear women clothing with extravagant, not only just female clothing, but extravagant, big wigs and big makeups and lipsticks and very extravagant clothing. And they will be invited to these schools, elementary school or libraries, and they will read these storybooks to the children, and to literally children 5 6 10 years old children, they will be reading these books to these children and normalizing this habit of having these types of, and they're seeing these people, so it becomes normal with them, desensitizing the public, literally trying to desensitize the public. A decade ago, talk about a decade ago, this would be something very niche. You would only see this in like clubs, and you wouldn't see something like this in libraries or especially in schools. But now this is something that is being taught in our schools, or they're invited, and there's a whole. I didn't, of course, put the website here. People can book them right now. Like they literally they have their own website. They can book them. A person, okay, I'll invite to our school or to our library, to local library. They can book them, right? And there are books by mainstream publishers for kids with LGBT characters. In 2010, how many LGBT characters were there in books? There are only 10 books with LGBT characters. We're talking about 2010. Only 6 years after. Only 6 years after, it increased to 80 books. 80 books. I couldn't find the study for 2023, but we can imagine how high would that number would be. So that's literature. When it comes to media, and that's what most of our children, they're attracted to media. There's Marvel, there's Disney, all these types of shows that they have. All of them, many of them, they start implement these LGBT characters. Many of them, these cartoons, especially Disney nowadays, Marvel, new cartoons with LGBT characters. So there are 118 films from major studios that had some LGBT characters. That's 18%. 18%. This is literally overgeneralization of the public. There are not 18% of people that are LGBT affirming or they identify as LGBT, but there's overrepresentation. And you can see there's something behind the scenes. There's some agenda behind the scene. Normalization. So that these things become normal. Yeah, okay, there's this LGBT character. Yeah, just like there is this male, there is this these type of characters. There are these characters, and this will shock you. Sesame Street, right? A very famous cartoon has LGBT characters. SpongeBob, right? SpongeBob, he's asexual, and this is Nickelodeon on Pride Month. They are releasing these videos. So SpongeBob is LGBTQAIQA. The A stands for asexual. So SpongeBob is asexual. The Legend of Korra, also a very famous cartoon. The main character is bisexual. Main character is bisexual. And in schools, you have these two states. There are these states that have mandated education, LGBT education. That it is mandated. You have to give LGBT education to students from young age. And in Canada over here, there's something called SOGI, sexual orientation and gender identity in Canada. So devoted to advanced LGBT education in Canadian public school. But now all of this, what does this happen? What does it have to do with Muslims? This is the saddest part. This is what we're trying to discuss right now. Where do we stand? What does it have to do with Muslims? So in May of 2022, a poster came out. Right, that's just last year. A poster came out, and this poster went on universities and high schools and many high schools and colleges also. Right, this is the poster. I'm sure many of you guys have seen this poster also. Now, when you see this poster, you notice something. You notice they're they're trying to promote some agenda, right? There is something over here. But then there is some one thing that is very noticeable. There are right here, there are two hijabi sisters, right? There are two hijabi on the verge of kissing each other. Hijabi, right? What are from the get go? What are they trying to? Are there any other religion depicted here? Are there Christians or Judaism, Hindus, Buddhism, any other religion depicted over here? Only one religion depicted, and that is the hijab. Right? Of course, you can see the Muslims had an uproar. Now, why targeting the Muslims? Because Muslims are one of the only groups that have in mass held out against such ideology. So they want to normalize it. They want to associate the Islamic symbol with LGBT, so it becomes normal. It becomes desensitized. Okay, now there might be an uproar. Let's try again after 6 months. Let's try again after a year. Okay, now there's a lesser uproar. Okay, let's try again after 5 years. Let's try again after 10 years. Right? It's a slow, it's a process, a bit by bit. So of course, as you can imagine, there was very big upset. Muslims community was upset. Number one, it goes against the symbol of hijab. Hijab itself means purity. It means modesty. Hijab itself means sexual morality of Islam. Right? It means sexual morality of Islam. So using that thing which goes against it, that symbol which goes against that very religion and depicting it in that poster. And number two, no other identifiable religion. We've already mentioned that. No other identifiable. Why only Muslims? So it's only the only group in mass that has held up out on this issue. Right? No Muslim who is taken seriously openly endorses this type of behavior. So therefore, need to target the Muslims so they become desensitized. Slowly but surely, they will become desensitized and they will start making two and two, and they will start understand that these are two all same thing, all from the same umbrella. So now, in all of this, where does this lead to the Muslim? This is what happens, and this is why people have these types of doubts about Islam. And this is the scary part, that our children and our siblings and our younger generations are attacked, right? They will make it seem that there are in movies, in the movies that our kids are seeing, if there are in the Marvel, in the shows, in the cartoons, maybe in the comic books that they're reading, it's there, right? Now, what is that one consistent message that they get? The one consistent message, the one consistent message that has been put out is this: every decent, moral, respectable person is LGBT affirming. Every respectable person, every moral person, every decent person will be LGBT affirming, and not only tolerating, affirming, like, yes, with approval, with a stamp of approval. So if someone who is not, who has a different perspective, like the Islamic perspective, very different, has a different perspective, right? What will happen? In school, is saying no, every moral person is accepting, is affirming. But Islam is teaching that it's not, it should not be affirming. There's a different perspective. So now there's a clash between two paradigms. And inshallah we'll speak about a paradigm shift, but there's clash. Right now the shubuhat doubts, they start. Doubts are started by this. So in conclusion, if you hold a different moral perspective, they consider in an act of bigotry, an act of hatred. Just because you have different opinion from ours, you're a bigot or hateful, right? And hate speech. So again, over here right now, what we're not doing any hate speech. There's no hate speech over here. We are certainly only explaining the Islamic perspective on gender. What is the Islamic's perspective on gender ideology? Right? Gender ideology is a study, right? So Islam has its own gender ideology. We don't need to take this gender ideology given to us from the West or given to us from academia. We have our own Islamic values. We have our own Islamic Sharia, Islamic board, Islamic understanding, and we retort to this Islamic understanding for our ideologies. So this is why Muslims are in a very difficult place. That why a source of doubt. Go into much detail. So a young Muslim source of doubt, young Muslim's chain of thoughts. He will say, okay, can I reinterpret this? Maybe Islam is wrong in this, right? He will start thinking, okay, everyone is saying that it's every moral person has is doing it, and so what should I do? Maybe Islam is wrong in this, right? Number two, then if he establishes maybe Islam is wrong in this, then he will say, okay, maybe I can reinterpret. I can reinterpret the Islam. I can reinterpret it. If I can reinterpret it, then what happens? I can reinterpret it. And then he sees I can reinterpret this. Everyone, I'm being told that his teachings are dehumanizing, it's disrespecting fundamental human rights, undermining of dignity. Then number four, at the end, it says, who wants to belong to such a religion? It leads to that. It will lead to that. Who wants to belong to such a religion? So this is why if we do not understand our own perspective, if we do not understand what Islam says about these things, then it will lead to chaos. It will lead to people leaving the fold of Islam. It will lead to this. And we have seen this. I've been working with this, and we've seen over and over how people starts with these small doubts. These very small doubts, it lingers, and then it grows on and grows. It's like a snowball. When you throw it down, it keeps on growing. So it grows and grows, and then it turns and becomes a tumor. Becomes a tumor. Now, inshallah, we move on to the another part of the segment. It's called Islamic paradigm, right? The Islamic paradigm, and everyone knows what paradigm means. So, paradigm means, the simple definition of paradigm is how you view the world. Right? This is a very simple definition. What is your outlook? How do you look at the world? With what lens are you looking at? For example, a view of how you look at reality, the lenses you use. For example, if I'm wearing, I have my glasses, right? I see some of you guys have glasses. If I ask you, do you see your glasses, right? Do we see our glasses? Or if I ask you, do you see your eyes? We don't see our eyes, do we? Or do we see our eyes? We don't see our eyes. We see through it. We don't see our eyes, but we see through it. So paradigm is literally those lenses that you're wearing. If you're wearing green lenses and you tell me that this wall is white, what will I say? It is green. I say it is green. Why? Because I'm wearing green lenses. The moment I remove my lens and I see, oh yes, this was white. This is the lens. So paradigm is literally the way you look at reality. For example, For lenses, like I said, you don't see our lens, you look through them. Eyes, you don't see your eyes, you look through your eyes. So, and then there's James Anderson. He says worldviews also largely determine people's opinion on matters of ethics and politics. What a person thinks about all these things, abortion, euthanasia, same sex relationship, all these things are part of your paradigm. So if you have an Islamic outlook, then you have an Islamic opinion. If you have a Western outlook, a Western paradigm, if you've adopted the Western lens, you go to the university, you listen to their media, you adopt the Western lens. You look at everything from that Western lens, from that academia lens. What will you see? You think that, oh, my opinion is without any bias. I'm not biased in my opinion. But this is the problem. We are biased in our opinion. It is because of that lens. So we need to adopt these Islamic lens. And when we adopt these Islamic lens, there are two different things. If I'm wearing green lens or if I'm wearing black lens or brown lens, can I say that they're the same color? I will look at it differently. So similarly, these paradigms are looked at differently. If you look at it from the Islamic worldview, Islamic lens, then you will look at it differently. So this is the paradigm shift. I will just give another example. So paradigm shift. So now I explained the paradigm. So you're looking at it from the green lens. Now a shift happens. Now you remove the lens and you look and there's a shift. So let's you'll understand from an example. Inshallah, the kids will have fun with this. What do you guys see here? Yes. What do you guys see here? An old lady or a young lady? How many people see a young lady? Yes? How many of you see an old lady? Old lady? Because does anyone see both? Okay. So in this, there's two. There's old lady and young lady. So paradigm shift is you see only one. Those people who only saw the young lady is young lady is looking away, right? This is her chin, this is her bone and jawbone. This is her nose, and she's looking away. Young lady, right? The old lady is this is the eyes of the old lady. This is the chin of the old lady. This whole is the nose. This is the nose of the old lady. This is the mouth, the hair of the old lady. Everyone see it? Everyone see the both? So, mashallah, we heard an oh, like aha. Right? This is that paradigm shift. Like, oh, I've been looking at it from a different perspective all this whole time. Right? When we send our children to universities, when we send our children to high school, to elementary, to all these schools, then they are told these perspective, these lens, and without even knowing, they adopt these lens. They adopt these lens, and when they come to Baba or their father, they come to their father and they ask these questions. We give them the Islamic perspective, the Islamic lens, and then they'll say, "Oh, now I see." Now I see there's a big like a paradigm shift. Like, oh, now I can see the reality. Now I can switch the lens. And let me give you a different example. This second example, everyone can see this example. Everyone sees both. So every one of you should be able to see the young lady and old lady. Okay. Number two, the second example. What do you guys see over here? Dots, just black dots. Trees. There are these random dots over here. So the moment I tell you what you will see, the moment I tell you the animal, or okay, I just gave it away. There's an animal, but then you'll be like, oh, aha. Animal. Okay, I give you one hint. There's an animal. Right? Inshallah, I'll give you 5 seconds. Five. Yes. Something on the left is an animal. Okay, maybe that's a bat. Okay, it's a cow. Do you guys see a cow? A cow. Yes, a cow. Okay, now I'll show you the cow. Like, of course, this is a cow. And then when I show you this after 5 years, you will still remember that this is a cow. Right? This is the eye of the cow, the second eye, the big nose, and with the one that is moved with. Now everyone can see the cow? The big nose, the two eyes, the forehead right here. Yeah, everyone see the cow? No, no, don't, I don't have my pointer. I usually have the pointer here, but this is the eye right here. This is the eye. This is the second eye. The big nose. The nose over here. As everyone should be able to see the cow, right? The cow. So the moment you see the cow, it's like this aha moment. Oh, that's it. Of course, I see the cow now. So this is what we're trying to do. This is the presentation is trying to accomplish this main thing. If we don't have time to get into all this detail, all this thing, it's okay. The main thing is that there is an Islamic way. There's an Islamic understanding. Whatever you've been told in school, in media, whatever you've been told in debates and this and that, that is their understanding. There is an Islamic understanding, and you will have to come to the scholars, or you'll have to come to the masjids and sit with the scholars, sit with the understand the Islamic knowledge, right? Make doing that research and understanding what Islam teaches about it. Many times we're just feeding and taking it in whatever school is saying. Just a quick other example: if I draw an M, if I draw an M, if I turn it around, it becomes a W. To the left or right, it becomes a E or a 3. But it's the same M. So when our kids are going to school and when we are going to universities, we've only been showed the M. We have to shift the perspective and see, oh no, now I can do like this and it becomes the W. I can do like that, it becomes a 3. Okay, there's different understanding. And then you have Islam, right? The triumphant, the one that beats all these worldviews, right? Because it's revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from the Quran and Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so this is why inshallah we're going to talk about these three paradigm shifts. So how you look at the world is how you will answer the big questions, whether you have answers or not. So there's everyone has this paradigm. Everyone has this outlook, the way they look at reality. And like I gave the example of the lenses. If I'm using different lens, then I will look at different things differently. I will look at differently. Every time lenses are changing, I can change the lenses. So we need to adopt this Islamic lens, this Islamic perspective. So this is where we have to be mindful of the paradigm. Three paradigm shifts. So before we get there, we say we do not adopt their paradigm. Right? Let's just get to the three paradigm shifts. So number one is the language. Language. This is where we start into the discussion. Okay, this is where we start into discussion. Actually, before going to that, just a short introduction. That we will use same-sex attraction and same-sex behavior. The West, the paradigm, they're both the same thing. In the Western paradigm, they're both the same thing. In our Islamic paradigm, they're two different things. One is same-sex attraction and one is same-sex behavior. Just because you're attracted to a gender, right? Just because you're attracted to a sex doesn't mean you have to act on that behavior. You have to act on that attraction, right? So same-sex attraction is you're erotically attracted to the same sex. Behavior is when you engage. Islam separates between the two. Islam separates between the two. The Western ideology will say, no, if you're attracted, then that is your identity. You are gay or you're lesbian or you're bi, you're this and that. They will label. Right? We do not really label. We're not going to label like that. Why? We will not use their terminology like these terminologies. Why? The main thing is implies that a person's identity is defined by their action and behavior. That your identity is defined by your behavior. But our identity is not defined by our behavior. Let's say a person sees something like $5, or and they take it, right? They take. Now, will we say this person is a thief? Now, his entire life, do we brand him as a thief? Right? So just because someone's behavior, that doesn't mean it becomes his identity. So not in the case of Islam. So if we have someone who is attracted to a man, do we start calling him like, oh, you're this or you're gay or you're that? No, that person might be fighting against that desire. He might genuinely be fighting against it. So why are we labeling that person that you're already this? You cannot choose what you are. This is what you are, right? This is what you've already become. For example, if a person is attracted to a female, if a male is attracted to a female, do we call him right away you're adulteress or you're a zani? We're not going to call him like that, right? Just because there's attraction doesn't mean there is that action, there's that behavior, and that certainly not the identity. So the main problem is the community, LGBT community, have turned an urge, something that there is an urge to do, into an identity. So urge equals to identity. Just because you have an urge to smoke, that becomes your identity that you're a smoker. Just because you have an urge to steal, that becomes your identity that you're a thief. Just because you have these urges. So similar, of course, we're not going to do that like that. But when it comes to gender, to sexuality, they will have these identity. Just because you have this urge for this gender, then that becomes your identity. So they inflated the significance of homosexual desires into an identity to justify their action. So this is just an introduction to the three paradigm shifts. So inshallah, we should remember these three paradigm shifts. They will be very helpful and to understand the Islamic perspective. This is the main thing, the Islamic perspective. So first is the language. The language. When they say that, oh, this is supposed to be natural, it's normal, everyone has it and everyone chooses, so how come no other culture even has words to correspond to these things, right? For example, words like sexuality, straight, bi, these words. For example, let's give a proper example. Let's say you go 100 years back. 100 years back, a normal person is walking in the streets of Edmonton, right? You time travel 200 years ago. You stop this person and you say, "Sir, are you straight? Sir, are you straight?" What do you think that he will reply? What do you think he will reply? Everyone knows what straight means, right? No, no, no. If a person says, "Sir, are you straight?" What will he reply? Yes, they will be confused. Why? They don't know what it is. But now it's something so common: straight, gay, this, that. It's so common. Well, 100 years ago, these terms did not exist. The term straight did not exist. So it was something to be very common and, of course, understandable. Then why this term did not exist? Right? The action did. And again, the action did. Right? Action existed. The action of same sex behavior existed. For example, we have records from Rome and the Greeks that they were acting on those behaviors. Right? Even the nation of Lut, the palm of Lut alayhi salam, they were acting on those behavior. But do we say that we are gay, we are this, we are that? Even they had that kind of decency that they're not calling that we are this, right? Yes, we indulge in that action, but it doesn't become that that's the part you are. So now the first paradigm shift is this, right? The first paradigm shift is this: sexual behavior was something that you did, was something that you did. Action was something that you did. It was not something that you were, not an identity. Something that you do, not something that is becomes your identity. Again, like I said, they inflated the action into an identity. Just because this is what you do, this becomes your identity. Everyone's following me? Just because there's something you do, it becomes your identity. So, but the first paradigm shift should be now there's a paradigm shift. Like, no, it's not something that I do, right? It's not something that this is something that you were. So this is the Western paradigm. So our paradigm is that sexual behavior was not something that you did. Sorry, so it was something that you did, not something that you were. This is one of the main things, right? What the forces in the West wants you to believe that they present as a universal thing, a natural, right? We understand it is not something that we become. It's not an identity. It's an action. So we should be very mindful in calling people this. Let's say in school, and some of friends say, "Oh, I'm gay," or "I'm this." Like, why are you raising that identity? Why are you making an identity of yourself? Why? It's an action, right? It's an action. Why are you raising it up to the identity level? So that's the first language. Number two, norm. So normally, Islamic paradigm, Western paradigm, okay? In Islamic paradigm, the following should line up as a normative matter. Normative meaning normally, these four things should line up: your sex, gender identity, gender expression, gender orientation. These four things should line up, and inshallah I'll explain all what it means. So that's the normal way. This normally these four things will line up, but Islam understands that for some it will not line up, and then we call them gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria, and Islam understands that, and Islam acknowledges that there is something called gender dysphoria and gender identity disorder. These things Islam recognizes them. But for example, let's take example of having fingers, right? If I say I have 5 fingers, and I think most of us over here or all of us over here have 5 fingers, but let's say someone which is quite also happens. Let's say someone is born with another thumb, and he has 6 fingers. In total, he has 6 fingers. So now, do we say that the concept of fingers is a social construct? We will not say it's a social construct. Just because there's a one exception to the rule, doesn't undermine the entire rule. Just because one person does not identify with his assigned gender, even gender assigned gender, these terms are all new, are noble gender words. So just because one person does not associate with that, we do not make the whole thing as a social construct. This is what they will try to say. Oh, gender is a social construct. Gender is a social construct. You can choose what you are. You can choose how you are. It's everything is social construct, right? So this is not the Islamic perspective. What is the Western perspective? So the Western perspective is this second paradigm shift. These four things are not meant to line up. They are not meant to line up. You choose, and this is where they bring up the gender-bread person. And this is probably one of the scariest part of this presentation is this right here. Anyone familiar with this image? You've seen this? Where? You've seen this whole diagram. Okay. So there is this. Yes. You've seen this diagram before? Okay. Okay. So one thing you'll have to realize over here is look at the fonts. Look at the fonts. Look at the coloring. Look at the way it's written. Do you think this is to present to a PhD student, or this is for to appeal a master's student, to appeal a college student? Just look at the font and just look at how fun this is looking like. What do you think? Who do you think is targeting? Who do you think they're targeting with this image? Just yesterday, I was presenting this, and someone asked me that where do they show this? But we don't even need to know where do they show this. Just look at how this portrayed, right? This is definitely for. And I was actually, when I was giving my presentation online, and there was one mother who reached out and he's like, my daughter has been talking about this, and I never knew it was this is what she was talking about, right? So this is, and you can see the QR code right here. I'm not promoting their website, of course. So, but just to show that this is literally from their website. This is literally from their website. Their website name right here. For this, literally from their website, right? I'm not making this up anything. It's literally from their website. And what is it? That, like we've established, they're not meant to line up. All these four things are not meant to line up. So this right here, the brain, this is your identity. This right here, this is what you're born with. This is what you're born with. So if you're born with a male, let's say you're a male, biological sex male, but your identity can be woman, and your expression can be, let's say expression can be androgynous or feminine expression. You're male, here you're male, but your expression is feminine, right? Okay, let's say your expression is feminine, but your orientation can be homosexual. So it's all a spectrum, all a spectrum. You can move in and out from any one of you like. You can, one day you can be this, the other day you feel like this, the other day you feel like that, and it's all a spectrum. And this is something that we need to, from very young age, we need to instill in our kids that look, there is this thing called man and woman, boy and girl, and we instill these values. They will say in school, they will say this, yeah, you can cry, men can cry, you should show your emotions and this and that. It's okay, and it starts off like this. Of course, like Ali radiallahu anhu is saying is kalimatu haqqin yuridu bihal batil. It's a statement that is truth, but from it there is batil that is intended. Falsehood is intended by it. In of itself, the statement like, "Oh, you should cry. It's okay. You should show your emotion." But it's what is thought behind it. That no, then there's the line between the man and woman is blurred. Right? The line between man and woman is blurred. It's okay. You can cry. You can be like you can show a feminine side. Also, you can have some feminine expression. You can wear feminine dress. I think it was actually in Montreal in this Pride month. One boy didn't come to school because there was some pride activity. Everyone was supposed to dress differently, the cross dress, right? Deliberately cross dress. So men are wearing women clothes, or boys are wearing girl clothes, girls are wearing boy clothes. That's in Montreal I'm talking about. So one Muslim did not show up. He didn't go. So the next day, this teacher got the boy and to put him up in front of the class and told him that let's make you a girl right now. And right there and then she put on the clothes and elementary school, so he wouldn't know. So he put on the girl's costume and makeup and said, "You see how you feel? You don't feel anything. It's okay. It's not a big deal." Normalizing these things, normalizing these things. So we should instill in our women, our girls, these feminine attributes, and we should understand that there are these genders, there are men and women, and they are created differently, right? So we should instill from younghood, from when they're young, instill these values into them, right? Like I said, if we are not actively filling up the cups of our children, of the hearts, the cups, then someone else, another force will fill up those cups, and they're not necessarily something that we want to be filled up with. It's literally going to be filled, and something like this, literally something like this. And we've seen one of where I give my halaqah in Montreal. One of the students, one of the youth, he's in college right now, so he just got into college. But he was part of this, that type of LGBT, and then he had this whole shift, and then he's like, I want to come back. He came back, and now alhamdulillah he's trying to come back, and he comes with us, and he spends his time with us, and he's very trying to come back, and alhamdulillah he's back now. But and this is something that is very normal, my dear brothers, something and sisters, something very commonly we might not think that is common, because we are in our own circle, but once we go out of that circle, these things are happening, and they're happening at a very rapid pace. It's a society that I'm from a 90s, like a 90s kid, right? The 80s, 70s, they're all different times, right? We grew up on our own and we managed to do so, right? But that's a different society now. Now we're living in a completely different society with the rise of social media, with the rise of Twitter, with the rise of TikTok, right? The kids, they think that, oh, this is my opinion, but they're instilled by these videos that they see. The kids, they think that, yeah, there's something called subconscious mind, and this is where the kids catch from, the subconscious mind. The kids, they think that, oh, these are all my ideas, but they're all instant by there's those movies, and that the girls are kissing, or this is happening, and that is happening, right? And kids will think that, oh no, this is all mine, but it's actually things that they consume on Twitter, things that they consume on TikTok, and things, and it's a whole community that is built, right? Back in the days when one person was like that, no one knew about him, no one knew about him. But now, the moment one person has that, he will come out on Twitter, and he will go on Reddit, and he will say that I'm this, and then he will get support from everyone. He's like, oh, let's go, you're very brave, you're so brave, I'm so proud of you, and get all this support. And this person will feel, yes, yes. And the more this happens, the more this person will go high, and I can do this, right? But the person thinks that these are all his ideas, but it's the product of society. This is the product of the society that they're brought up in. So again, if we are not filling up that cup will be filled up by something else, and by someone else, right? By another ideology, by another perspective. If we are not wearing our lenses, if we don't adopt these lenses, then another lens will happen. There will be another lens. For example, everyone has a language. Everyone has a language, right? So if someone learns a second language, right, then he will understand. Okay, then there was this aspect of this first language. Let's say, for example, in English, there's blue shirt, right? If someone only knows English, he will say that, okay, adjectives comes before the noun. Blue shirt, right? Blue shirt. He only knows English, so he thinks that adjective always comes before the noun. Now he learns Arabic, and he sees al qamisul azraq. Al qamisul azraq, the blue shirt, the qamis comes first before azraq, the color. Nouns come before the color. Now he understands. Okay, this was the thing on the the second language. So now these are it's like languages. Worldviews are like languages. Everyone will have a worldview. So we need to shift it and take in the Islamic perspective. Okay, so they will say this is all a spectrum. Everything, all this gender, this and that, expression, your identity, everything is a perspective. Everything is spectrum. You choose, you can phase in and out. And again, as you can see, they're very playful color, right? Colors full with colors for children and appealing to children and targeting the children. They will say that I feel this internally, therefore I should be allowed to do it. Right? I feel this internally. So what do we say about that? The Sharia regulates it. So the Sharia regulates these things. It is not our thing that I feel this, so this is what I should do. This is what should be happening. I feel this. Right? So the Sharia regulates it. It is not up to us. It is not up to us to reduce it only to psychology. Right? That's not what our conception of the human being is based on to begin with. Right? Bring a foreign ideology and worldview to Islam. This does the second paradigm shift. Right? If it's a choice you can choose. So they can say, yeah, you can choose all these, you can come in and out of anyone. So there is a Quranic verse, and this is the Quranic verse, and it's clear that it is not for a believing man or woman when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His Messenger, has decreed a matter to have any other choice. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said that this is what is a human, this is what is a male, this is what is a female, then it is not our choice. It is not our choice. Right? There is no choice. So finally, the third paradigm is that the Western paradigm. So there's a bit more technical. I think we might just leave this one. Let's just leave this one. So this one is basically we've already covered it. That the identity Islamic paradigm is that action should be different than desire. Western paradigm is that if you desire something, so if you desire something, then you have to act on it. And if you act on it, then that becomes your identity. Right? The moment you desire something, the moment you desire something, let's say you desire, let's say you desire having this type of same-sex behavior. If you desire it, then you can act on it. And if you, the moment you act on it, the entire identity is based upon it. An entire identity is created. But in Islam, this is one of the fundamental aspects of Islam. Desires are different than actions. Actions are different than desires. Just because we desire something doesn't mean we have to act on it. For example, let's say one of us is praying salat and he gets up and $200 falls off, 200 US dollars, right? 200 US dollars, and you're passing by and you see these $200. You don't think that there's a desire to take them? Of course, there's a desire, right? There will be that just take them. Who's gonna know? When I become rich, I will donate like $10,000 to the masjid, right? There's that desire. No one can lie. No one can deny that. But why don't we do it? There's a clear distinction. Just because you desire something doesn't mean you have to act on it. There's a complete distinction between desire and action. Everyone get it? Just because you desire something, there's many desires. Many times when you're late and you have to pray Aisha and then you have PS5. So what do you desire? And of course the PS5 would be more appealing. Like I can just PS5 and just go to sleep. Right? This is a desire. But then should that be the action? This is because that is a desire. So this is literally a habit that is created, a habit that no, if you desire something, it's okay, you do it. There is no one stopping you. These types of mentality. This is the mentality that is brought up. That no, there's nothing stopping you. And when the kids are growing up with such mentality, then when they get older, then there's no control. There's literally no control. Right? Then whatever they desire, they will do it. Right? But I'm speaking to the kids also. There's a fundamental thing that once we desire something, once we want something, we should ask, is this what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from me? Is this what Allah wants from me? If from the young age we do not ask these questions, then when we get older, we certainly won't ask these questions. We won't care what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Right? We won't have any value for it. So action should be different than desire. Just because you desire something, it does not mean that you need to act on it. It does not mean that you need to act on it, let alone show pride in it. So this was being mindful of the paradigm. So we saw that there's a language, that it is not something that the sexual the behavior, it is not something that you it is something that you did, not something that you were, something that a person did, an action, not an identity. And norm, everyone remembers in norm what we discussed, these are not meant to line up in Islamic paradigm. These following things are meant to line up, they are meant to line up. But in the Western paradigm, they're not meant to line up. It's all a choice, it's all on a spectrum. And inshallah, just before there's this disclaimer, right? So we care about others who are suffering from these types of tests, right? These are tests from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if someone is actually going through this and suffering from this, then these are tests and we have to care for them. We should not alienate them. We should not discard them or say bad to them. They're actual tests, and these are mujahidun in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are struggles, there are those who struggle in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there are these types of groups, inshallah, that we can refer. There is this one Discord group that has more than 1,000 members, right? They're helping those people who want to come back and to go back to the Islamic perspective and take the Islamic understanding of this gender. So inshallah, before we close, we this is the so this of course the whole presentation is a 6 hour presentation with the history of LGBT, the harms and all. But before at the end, inshallah, we'll speak about these fallacies. These fallacies, the different scenarios, guys, right? Right, dealing with fallacies. So these are the arguments. So of course, there's an agenda, and there is some convincing in it. So they will try to convince you, right? They will give you arguments that, oh, this should be acceptable. Why? Because this, that, and this, right? They were giving you arguments. So now we have to give counter arguments. We have to give them the answers. We have to tell them that no, this is wrong, and this is how it should be. We should be equipped by these answers. So this is inshallah the last part of the presentation. There's a small booklet that I had written just some time ago, answering the top 13 LGBTQIA plus 2SS community objections with clarity. So we many things that we've already covered. The freedom of gender identity, we've covered these things. So now one thing is we see it in nature. We see it in nature. There are animals who do that behavior, so that behavior should be okay, should be permissible, and should be moral. Right? Of course, we can already see how absurd that argument is. So, but one thing is, this is not true. It is not true that even in animal kingdom that such behavior exists, and there are these studies happening. Number two, why take what animals do as a blueprint? There are some animals that lick their own genitalia. So are we going to take that as our blueprint? Or there are some animals that will kill their babies, right? Do we take that as our so now we say, okay, killing babies or doing this or that is permissible, it's moral? We're not going to take our morality from animals, right? And there's this argument that born that way. I'm born this way, therefore I should be allowed to act on my desires. Right? This is something very common. Like, I am born this way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me this way. I am born this way, therefore I should be able to. So the answer, clear answer is, we are born with many tendencies. We are born with many tendencies. We are born with many, right? Not just one, two, three. We're born with many, and many of them are not permissible, right? The one of the main things for someone who's attracted to the opposite sex, is a man attracted to a woman, that's a tendency, right? Is it permissible? Is it halal to have outside of marriage? It's not permissible. So even that is a tendency that we need to control, that we cannot just let loose. For example, I gave you the money about the example about the money. There is that tendency of just taking it, right? There's a thing called kleptomania. Kleptomania. It's when you like seeing something burn. Like they like setting things on fire. They will set things on fire and they will take enjoyment from it, right? They will take enjoyment from it. So what do we say about that? Like, oh, let him be, he's a kleptomaniac. Let him do his thing. Let him have his fun. Let him burn the entire this or that. Let him do that. Is a kleptomaniac. Are we going to say that? No, just because the person is born with these tendencies, some tendencies, we will have some control. There will be some that, okay, no, this is something you can do and this is something that you cannot do. right? Just because a person is born that way. So, but again, there's a big argument about this born that way argument, anyways, right? Many studies have been done, countless studies have been done. They are not able to find the gay gene. That's the thing, the study that they call the gay gene. They have not been able to find any gay gene, right? So even that argument that born that way, that is not true, right? No one is born that way. They are brought up that way. Like they say, the media they consume, the TikToks, the Twitter, and especially the society that they're living in, the Marvel and Disney, all these things, right? So it's not necessarily born that way. They grow up that way. They grow up that way. Uh, there was one, on a lighter note. There was one person saying that back in 1950 there were 0.1% of LGBT affirming, and in 1970, I might get the numbers wrong, there were 1%. In 2000, there were 5%. In 2010, there were 15%. In 2020, there were 25%. And in 2050, there will be 100%. Everyone will be like that, right? So we can see how society, it's the progress of society. It's not about born that way, it's about growing up that way. So especially now, we should literally focus on building, instilling these Islamic values to our kids, our children, instilling these Islamic values, right? And another thing, Allah made me this way, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the one who made me this way. He's the one who gave me this tendency. So it should be okay. So this, we've already answered that, right? These are tests from Allah. We have these tendencies to steal. We have these tendencies of to be attracted to these things. We have a tendency to, when we look at some guys who are swearing, then we have this tendency, okay, let me just mix up with them and I can start swearing and I will be cool like that. We have this tendency of listening to music, and this is what shaitan thinks, right? It's zina, it's beautiful things, right? Beautifying these things. So just because we have this tendency, so we say, oh, Allah made this tendency in me that I am attracted by haram. So then I should have that haram. Then what is the point of having any halal and haram? So of course, these tendency, so Allah has created people with many tendencies. For example, sexual attraction, love for wealth, pyromania, so the urge to start fire. So pyromania was the urge to start fire. Kleptomania is the urge to steal. Urge to steal. And over here, this was the no harm principle. Like the LGBT, they're not harming anyone. So what's the issue? It's not like they're harming people. They're not going around and they're not harming people. It's two people behind closed doors. Where's the harm? So now this is one of the biggest. They will be the most vocal with this. Where is the harm? Why does your Lord or your big God cares about what's happening inside the rooms? And this is something very big. They will try to speak and scream that out, scream that in front of you. So we say, and this is the whole harm thing right over here. So these are the harm, the individual, the family, society, and civilization. So studies have been done. And not only Muslim historians, non-Muslims historians have written that the moment a sexual freedom, the moment a civilization goes through sexual freedom, that is the beginning of the end. That right there is the beginning of the end. Ibn Khaldun rahmatullah alayhi has written a lot on this, right? The end of Roman Empire, the end of the Greek Empire, the Greeks, the end of this big empire many times started from this sexual liberation, sexual freedom. Many of them, the family. So there is explicit statements from these type of activists that they want to end these types of family structure. So I'm not going to read this, but the summary is she thinks that the same-sex marriage should lead to the destruction of traditional marriage. Destruction. We want to blur the line between a man and woman. Just blur that line. There should be no difference between man and woman. So they have all these normalizations of these sexual homosexual behavior. They have this child drag queen, children, and there's this one. That's what I'm a there's a photo over here, which well, I'm not going to show it right here. There's these photos that they're called into these type of shows, right? They're called into this is a boy, a young boy, called and is wearing a woman's clothing and normalizing this. So it's not behind closed doors. It's not just behind closed doors, they're doing their thing. No, they're in many explicit things that we are coming after your children. They say these types of, we are coming after your children. So it's not just private behind closed doors, right? This video has millions of views, millions of views. So our children are taught this in school, literally taught this in school. So consequences, so they are bringing even children into it, normalizing in an extreme way, broadcasted throughout the world. And toddler transitioning is a big thing also. A young 12 or 5, 4 to 5 diagnosed with gender dysphoria, 45 years old. So there is harm. There is harm. A society is the fabric of society is different. So inshallah, we'll just do one last one before we end. Inshallah, let's see. Let's do a real life example. Inshallah. So this was actually sadly in Edmonton. I'm sure many of you might have heard this already. Uh, Mazhab, uh, volume. This. Hmm? Yes, okay. It's okay. So this was a video of it actually went viral of a teacher, and this teacher is right here. Apparently, it was in Edmonton, and she called out on a kid named Mansoor. She called it Mansoor, but there was this kid and who did not go, who did not attended their pride parade. There was a pride parade in the school and did not attend that parade. He took absence, and then when he came back to school the next day, this teacher lashed at him, like literally lashed at him, started screaming. Right? She screamed, and this is actually right here. So she started screaming, and she started saying these crazy. It's two main arguments. She said, we show respect for your Ramadan. We show respect for your Ramadan. Why don't you show respect for Pride Month? It's an exchange. An exchange. So we are showing you respect. Why don't you show respect to us? And this was the first argument. The second argument was, this is the Canadian law. This is the Canadian law. And if you do not believe that this should be the Canadian law, then you do not belong here. And she uses example in Uganda, you can get executed. So this is the Canadian law, and you do not belong here if this is the thing that you're thinking about. You do not belong here. Right? So let's tackle these arguments. So number one, when we're saying we show respect for Ramadan too, right? This is the argument. So there are two things. Number one, we're not, no Muslims will say that you have to respect our religion, right? Right? We do not say respect my religion. We say give me accommodation. Just I don't matter, I don't, it doesn't mind, I don't mind that you don't respect my religion. I don't mind that when I want to fast you laugh at me. I don't mind that. I don't mind that when I'm fasting you say that why are you hurting your body. I don't mind that. But what I just want is just that 2 minute break that where I can eat my date. Or I don't mind that you're laughing at my salat. I don't mind that you don't like I pray salat. What I do mind is when you're not giving me the opportunity to pray salat. This is what I mind. Everyone's following me? We only want accommodation. We only want accommodation. We don't necessarily want acceptance. Right? That no, accept me. For example, if I'm saying that this is Ramadan is happening, everyone has to fast with me. Everyone will fast. And because this is Ramadan and it's very important for my religion, I want the Islamic flag on top of the school. The Saudi Arabian flag or the Pakistani flag, whatever has the moon or La ilaha illallah flag, I want it on the school. No Muslims will say that. But when it comes to LGBT, And that's a political agenda that they're trying to shove down our throat. It's an agenda. It's an agenda. It's like you have to approve and affirm these rights. So it's no one says that, oh, you have to affirm and you have to approve our rights also. No, just accommodate. Just give me the accommodation. And the second, the last one was, this is what it means to be a Canadian. This is what it means to be a Canadian. And if you do not believe that this should be the law, and this is quotation marks, so this is actually her words. If you do not believe that you think this is the law, then you can't be a Canadian. You don't belong here. So the answer is that this is the fallacy is called no true Scotsman fallacy. When like the argument, the mistake is that you're redefining what it means to be a Canadian to fit your perspective. For example, let's say my parents are from India. Let's say in India it's known that they like to drink chai, the tea, chai tea. Right? They like to drink chai. So so let's say I'm speaking to someone and someone says that I genuinely don't like teas. I don't like tea or coffee. So, that's why I said it from before. So let's say someone is talking to me about Indians and their love for tea. It's like, every single Indian, no Indian dislikes tea. No Indian dislikes tea. Meaning like every Indian I've met dislikes likes tea. Right? No Indian dislikes tea. I say, no, actually I'm an Indian and I actually dislike tea. I can't stand even the smell of it. I don't like it. Right? So then the person says, oh, no true Indian dislikes tea. No true Indian dislikes tea. Right? It redefines what it means to be an Indian. Now, in your understanding, an Indian is someone who likes tea. Or I'm coming from Montreal, right? So we have what we have baguettes, right? Baguettes for breakfast. I went to UK, and there was this guy. Oh, what did you have for breakfast? Baguettes. I don't know why baguettes is so famous in Montreal, because of the French culture. But so if I say like no French dislikes baguettes, right? If I say no, I'm actually French and I dislike it, like no true French dislikes baguettes, right? You're redefining. So this is actually dangerous. So she redefines what it means to be a Canadian. And right there's like, oh, Canada is no longer where the place you're living in, but now it belongs to these political agendas. Now Canadian means you're this, Canadian means you're that, Canadian means this and that. And now you have to agree with all of this to be a Canadian. Right? If not, then you go back to your country. There's something very racist to say. And partly it is our fault. It is our fault. Why? Because when they say that Canadians can't wear imama in the mall, like okay, sorry, I'm not gonna wear imama. Canadians can't wear Islamic dress, okay, I'm not gonna. Canadians can't wear a niqab, okay, I'm not gonna wear a niqab. Canadians can't have 5 minutes break for Zohar, okay, I'm not gonna have. We're sucking up to everything. We're like, okay, boss, okay, you don't want me to have my 5 minutes for the prayer, I'm not gonna pray. Right? I'm not gonna do that. You don't want me to wear a hijab? You don't want me to wear niqab? Okay, I'm not gonna wear niqab. I'm not gonna wear a hijab. You don't want me to wear Islamic clothing? Okay, I'm not gonna wear Islamic clothing. You don't want me to do this? You don't want me to say salam out loud? You don't want me to say Allahu Akbar out loud? Okay, I'm not gonna pray salam. I'm not gonna do this. We're sucking up to everything, and then it comes back to haunt us. It comes back to haunt us in these things, right? We do not have our Islamic grounding, that this is what Islam means and this is what I need to follow. Salat is a non-negotiable. I cannot negotiate about salat, right? Hijab, these things, they are non-negotiable. I cannot negotiate with that, right? Islamic identity is a non-negotiable. I cannot leave out my Islamic identity for that. So this, when we're just flexible with these things, then it comes back to haunt us. It comes back to haunt us, not only us, but our children. And our children are told this from teachers. This is why this is our fault. This is our fault. Right now in Quebec, just to end, in Quebec, we're going through, I don't know if you've heard this in news, but in Quebec, it is banned to pray Salat in school. It is banned. So before, when I was in high school, we used to pray Salat in school. We used to have a chamber, a place to pray Salat. But now it is banned. A school cannot offer a prayer place space for children to pray their Salat, to do their Salat. It's banned. Now, that's the thing that the khatib in our places, they do khutbah every time, that they tell the parents that do something about it. But what they will the parents say? The parents will literally say, it's okay, miss your salah, don't pray your salah. It's okay, you can miss your salah. Right? They will say these types of things. Those people who have to pray, they will go outside and they will pray their salah. Or they will pray in their premises in the school, and they might get in trouble, and they will go on the parents, and the parents say, it's okay, my son has to pray salah, he will pray salah. It doesn't matter. He will pray salah. What can he do about it? Right? So when we are ignoring these major fundamental commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it becomes our fault, my dear brothers and sisters. It literally becomes our fault, and our children, the next generation, the couple of generations down the line, will pay for our not standing up to the Islamic understanding, and not grounding ourselves and not being strong to the Islamic way of life, letting go of salat, letting go of zakat, letting go of hajj, letting go of these fundamental rights. And this is the kids, they see this. The kids will see this. My father is a Muslim. He says that, mashallah, he's a big Muslim, he's Muslim, but he might miss salat sometimes. Right? So there's this clash. And the kids will able to catch these clash. Right? So we need to embody Islam, and we need to show them to our kids. Right? One example, like we have maktab Quran classes. So we are, as parents, we should be happy that we're sending our children to Quran classes. But our point is not only to send our kids to Quran classes, is to make sure that how our children will send their children to those Quran classes. It's how our grandchildren will go to Quran classes also. We should not be happy, okay, my son is going to Quran classes, mashallah, I'm happy. Right? But if we do not instill these values, mashallah, we have that value. You might have that value to send your son to the Quran class, to send your daughter to the Quran classes. But if we're not instilling greater Islamic values in our children's heart, then they will not send their children to Quran classes. Then the level of piety will dwindle and dwindle and dwindle and die down. I met one brother in India, actually. He was from Australia. In Australia, in the beginning of 1920s, they they immigrated many Pathans from Pakistan. They brought Pathans from Pakistan to Australia to build the railroad, to build the railroad system. They brought many Pathans from Pakistan, from that area, many Pathans. So this, so there were 10 brothers that came, 10 brothers that came together in 1920s. In 1920, 10 brothers, right? They came together, and then one of their progeny, his son, like great grandson, he was with me in India, and he was saying that from all those 10 brothers, every single one of them is murtad except my lineage. Every one of them is an apostate and has left Islam. Every one of them, except my lineage. The one brother that my grandfather, except him. Every single one has left Islam. This is why in Australia it's very common to see Brian, Muhammad, or have last name, Islamic last name, right? Losing Islamic identity, losing Islamic identity. This is a ideological fighting. It is an ideology, right? We cannot lose this battle. This is that one battle we cannot lose. And if you want to take one thing home, and this is something that you have to take home, right? This is that one battle we cannot lose. The ideological, right? We have to instill these values to our kids. We have to instill these values to our kids. Strengthen their iman, strengthen their connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, strengthen our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The kids will catch it. The kids will catch it. So we need to first and foremost save ourselves and save our family. That save yourself and your family from the fire. Right? So if we do not take these steps, and we let our children go to universities, go to high schools, and then we wonder, why are my children doing like this? And but we're not giving them anything. It's like the school is raising them. 6 hours, 9 hours a day, the school is raising them. Literally, the school system is raising them. And many times I hear this comment. Many times I hear this comment that moment the kids go to university, they become very disobedient and this and that, and they leave Islam altogether. But one question is to ask, that send these people that think that, oh, you go to university and the more you educate yourself, the more you will be an atheist, or the more you will leave Islam. Right? This is the common misconception. But send the same people, those same professors, back to the second, third century of Islamic golden era, to the Darul Hikmah in Baghdad, and that used to be the world's biggest university. Send them to those universities and see how these professors come out to be, and see how big of Sunni and Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah they come out to be. Right? So it's a part of environment. It's a secularized world that we're living in. Religion is no longer part of the curriculum. Religion is no longer part of they're not going to go to universities and teach, yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator of all, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the last messenger, we have to follow his. So they're not going to learn these things. What they will learn? They will learn they will learn غني دقاق cogito ergo sum, I think therefore I am. They will learn these philosophical arguments. They will learn things about religion. They will learn this and that, the philosophy, history. This is what they will learn, and we're pushing them to on this path without the proper guidance, without equipping themselves, without playing a major role into our children's life, right? We have to come for with answers when our children are going there and they come back to us and they seek answers. We are not many times we are not able to give those answers. Okay, inshallah. So without any further ado, inshallah, we'll end, inshallah. Any questions before we end? Anything you guys want to speak about? Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, we understand that the ideology, and we understand the tools they use for this ideology. But we would like to know why. The first question, why?
What do
Why
you
they
mean?
want to push and spread immorality
Hmm.
in the community? Why from the beginning? We know what they want to do. We know now what the aim of this ideology. But why? This is
So
very
like
clear.
that was one big part of the presentation I already covered, right? So it's an action that they're doing. So now to justify that action, they're justifying that they're making an identity out of it. So they want to justify their action. So the action is a certain action, but then they want to justify that no, this action is not anything bad, it's not anything immoral, it's moral, it's perfectly fine. So they justify those actions. So now it becomes, so now if let's say if I steal, right? Let's say if I steal, I have this problem of stealing. Then I say, oh no, actually, if you think about it, it was government's money anyways, right? It was, or sorry, it was the government is stealing from us anyways. So I'm stealing, it's okay, right? So they will start to justify their action. So in order to justify what their involvement, their haram or whatever it is, their immodesty, they want to normalize it. So now it's justifiable. Now it's like, okay, it was never anything immoral to begin with, right? It was nothing bad to begin with. It was something good, and everyone can do it, right? So this was one of their big things. But just before we close, actually, one I just forgot that inshallah, Mihrab Institute, Muaz Zahib is offering a course on these Islamic foundations, on exactly these worships, salat. He'll go into the worship, and it's a very good presentation and course that he has prepared, a 10-week course curriculum he has prepared. So inshallah, we can all participate in that course. There's the curriculum, there's intro and beliefs. We'll speak about the beliefs and speak about the worships. A full 3 weeks only on worship. Salat, will be more on worship, spiritual refinement, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So inshallah, everyone is requested to have this type of equipping ourselves with this type of knowledge, Islamic knowledge, how to pray, how to do all that, inshallah. It will reinforce our connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes.
It was a really good presentation, very good eye opener on what's going on. It's not a question, I just wanted to know how to get access to the book with those questions.
Yeah, so those books, inshallah, I'll send to Mazahib. He'll share it on a group or something. I don't know, but I'll share it with him, inshallah. Any other questions? You can ask a question freely. You don't need to feel shy. My flight isn't still sometimes, so I have some time. Do you have some questions? Yeah. Inshallah.
I just did my school in Montreal, so
Okay.
and I face a lot of issues regarding
Right.
and I see like compared to Alberta here, I think it's more being open to listen and they respectable have more. But regarding for the kids, how can we clarify the picture for them with the dealing with the with some features like this will have this.
Right. So, to be honest, it's just having that, allowing the kids to speak with the parents, and building a good connection with the kids and a good foundation with the kids, Islamic foundation. So they come to you and they ask those questions. But yeah, it usually starts from that, and having that when the kids they have that value and they're value driven, then they will not hesitate in saying the truth, and we should not hesitate in saying the truth also, right? Think inshallah if there's no other questions, you can add. سبحان الله بحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد ان لا اله الا انت نستغفرك ونتوب اليك سبحان ربك رب العزه عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. جزاك الله خير. جزاك الله خير.
MashaAllah, that was really good.
جزاك الله
I
خير.
just have a quick question.
Yeah.
So, I know that.
Will you share access to the presentation as well, or